Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Erica, and Amanda will be joining us as well. Today, we're going to talk about some one-stop reconciliation reports, and then we're going to go over some OVRD things, and then there'll be a few other points of information that we're going to share with you. I'm assuming everyone can hear me and can see everything. I don't see any questions saying otherwise. So I will go ahead and get started. Okay, so this first slide here is just giving you sort of a screenshot of where you can find the SOSA reports on your SOSA laptops. There's 5 reports available in here that you can use to help reconcile your one-stop votes. They're shown right here. 3 of them are shown here. The other 2 in the list, if you were to hit this button, the other 2 in the list would be the provisional poll book and the transaction audit list. And again, these are all found on the SOSA machines themselves. All right, so this numbers of how many of each of those types of transactions you've had. So you could print this out at the end of the day and, use that to compare your numbers. It gives you a total of all the votes, and then it breaks it out by canceled records, actual votes, updated registrations, new registrations, and provisionals. And that goes by site. So that's one report you can use. The next one is the SOSA voter detail. And this is just a list of everyone that has voted on a particular machine. And it gives all the details with their name and address, their ballot number, and all kinds of interesting information there. So you could use this list, if you need to compare paper to actual people that voted on a machine, this report might be helpful for that. And you can see here it also lists a vote type. A V is vote, C is cancel. All right, so this next report is the returned by mail ballot list. So there's a function in SOSA, if they come and return their mailed ballot to the one-stop site, you can actually log that in SOSA, and then you can print out this report so that you can do the data entry when you get back to the office. And the only people that will be on this report are those that returned by mail ballot to that one-stop site. All right, the next report you have is the SOSA provisional poll book. And this report will show all the provisional votes or records cast on that machine. So if you did an existing voter provisional or a new voter provisional, they would be on this report. So this will help you reconcile your provisional votes. You can print this report and get a detailed list. All right, and then this is one of the newest reports you may or may not have seen, but this could be really handy. This is a transaction audit list, so it shows every transaction that occurred on that machine. And you'll notice here there's a completed vote process. If it says why, then they went all the way through the process and cast a vote. If it says no, then at some point they canceled out, the poll worker canceled out of the whole process. So if you have a situation maybe where you have, 10 one-stop applications, but you only have 9 one-stop votes showing, then chances are the poll worker probably did a cancel vote and canceled out of the whole thing. So you could run this report and find those kind of situations because the vote process would be no. And again, it lists the name and what type of record it was. In this case, this report only had issue vote, but it shows all the different things on there. So this can be handy if you start coming across situations where you have more pieces of paper than you have electronic records for. All right, and then in One Stop System Manager, there's the one-stop transaction statistics report. And again, this will show all of the transactions that occurred on all of your SOSA machines that have transferred data, you know, into One-Stop System Manager, either with a manual transfer or, you know, with the connection, sort of the hybrid, whatever. As long as that machine has transferred data to One-Stop System Manager, that information will appear on this report. So where that first statistics report that you saw was for that machine only, this report covers all machines. And certainly you can, you know, when you go to run the report, there'll be criteria options. If you need to narrow it down to just one particular site, you can do that. But this is a running total of everything that has been transferred into One-Stop System Manager and therefore into the voter history. All right, so just a summary, you know, those reports I showed you will be very helpful with your one-stop reconciliation. And of course, if you have, you know, serious issues, put in a help desk ticket and we'll help you troubleshoot that and find out where things might have gone wrong. So this slide here is just you know, a quick reference to where the absentee file is on our website. So I gave you a direct link that you can click to go straight to the file, or you can go to our main web page, and then in that elections box on the front page, you can just click right here where it says May absentee data file. And you're welcome to, you know, share these links with anyone that needs them, including the public. All right, and you guys saw this slide last week when we talked about SOSA, but I just wanted to, you know, reference it again. You know, the OVRD is the on-site voter registration database. It's used on election day only, and OVRD is a conversion of SOSA. So if you're going to use OVRD, you always have to install SOSA first, and then you will convert it to OVRD. So some folks are lucky enough to have dedicated SOSA and OVRD machines. So for those dedicated OVRD machines, all you have to do is, you know, log in, convert it, set your site, and you're good to go. And again, if you're looking for the user guides for any of the applications, they're in FileZilla at this location here. All right, and so this slide just kind of tells you a little bit about the differences of OVRD and SOSA, and I'm not going to read them all out. You know, some of the main things are that OVRD machines don't need to be validated. OVRD uses your election sites or the precincts. They're not one-stop sites. OVRD only runs in local mode, or there is the site server functionality if a LAN's being used. And certainly all that information about setting that up is in the admin guide. But we can assist you a little bit with that if you decide to go in that direction.
And Erica,
yes.
I'm sorry, the ID thing too, number 5.
Yeah, I was just about to talk about that one.
Sorry.
That's okay. So if you're going to use provisional voting in OVRD, then you have to set a 3-digit machine ID. And that ID needs to start with a letter and then have 2 numbers. Now, these are not stored or logged anywhere, so if you're going to do that, you may need to keep a manual running list of what machine ID you've assigned to what machine. And there's no reports that pull that information either, at least not at this time. There's also another big thing here, number 6. You can only vote a registrant one time in OVRD. So for example, if you had a junior come in and vote and the poll worker accidentally voted him under senior's record, you could cancel the vote for senior, but then when he comes in to vote, he's going to have to vote provisionally because you cannot vote him again. So I can't stress enough to make sure that you are selecting or that your poll workers are selecting the correct voter when they go to vote someone, because on election day, you know, it could cause hassles and make some people upset if they, you know, have to vote provisionally. Another thing worth referencing is number 9. So any same-day registrants that you had during SOSA will not appear in the poll book for OVRD. They will not be there, and that's because you don't want them to be able to come back and vote. And we know sometimes people start the process and then they decide, oh, I'm not gonna vote today. I'll come back tomorrow and vote, and they can do that during one stop, but they cannot come back and vote on election day. So that's why they're not going to be in the poll book. And then there's a few other things here that you can do. Some settings you can change if you want a transaction receipt. I think most people have that turned off pretty much at this point, but if you wanted that, you could certainly turn that on. And then the other big difference is you can only do a transfer to the BOE one time. So make sure your poll workers don't try to do that transfer to BOE in the middle of the day, because if they do, that machine is now unusable for voting because it'll all be locked out. So just be sure if you allow your poll workers to do those transfers, just make sure they don't do it until the polls have closed. And as far as, the difference in how the two applications look, they're almost exactly the same. So the same screens you see in SOSA, you'll see in OVRD. All right, and then running the wizard, again, the same for SOSA. You have to run the wizard before you can install SOSA or OVRD. We talked about running the wizard last week, and I know everyone has run the wizard recently. Since One Stop starts tomorrow, everybody's got their machines ready to go.
Hey, Erica, can I interrupt just for a second? Chris sent in a good reminder to stress not to duplicate your 3-digit codes, because your provisionals, you'll have duplicate pins. So that's a good reminder on the previous page that your machine numbers have got to be unique.
Right, and that's why I said, it would be beneficial if counties keep their own running list of those codes so that they don't get duplicated. Everyone knows, running the wizard, if anybody has any emergency geocode changes they need to make, you can certainly do that, but keep in mind it's going to require rerunning the wizard, and then at a minimum, doing a 2-satellite and a transfer from BOE on each laptop to get all those new streets in. So at this point, if you can be done with geocode changes, that's the easiest and best option. And then again, training, you won't probably need this again until closer to the actual election, because you've just trained everyone for One Stop. But, if you need to install training or work in training, just remember that you have to log into the training database, not your production. And that login for training is CBE admin. You will not be able to log into training as your regular Seams user. And again, just another refresher of what the two screens look like. So if you're trying to log into One Stop System Manager for production, you'll see this sort of issue here. If you're going to log in for training, then your database type will be training and the database will be training. Now it says county and it has the county name here because for us, logging into all counties, we have to have it look a little bit different so that we can access everybody. But you guys would just see training there. All right, and then another little summary again of the Seams installation. You're going to copy that sosaprod.exe file or the sosatrain.exe file to a stick or some sort of media that you can use to install it on all of your laptops. To run the installation, you simply double-click on the file. We actually would recommend that you right-click the file and do Run as Administrator, as that ensures all the elevated permissions. And sometimes if an install doesn't work by double-clicking, if you right-click and Run as Administrator, it'll work. So as a best practice, you could do that all the time, but certainly you don't have to. The full install is what you're going to want to put on your laptops, because that has county and local connectivity. The partial install is going to go only on your desktop workstations in your office. And then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you have dedicated over machines, you can immediately convert those to OVRD either by logging in local mode, skipping all the stuff about setting a site and just go straight up and convert to OVRD, or you can use the SOSA OVRD tool for convert to OVRD. And the SOSA OVRD tools can be found under your Start button, and then there's an SBOE folder, and you'll see SOSA OVRD tools in there. You launch it, you would click the OVRD tab, and then there's a Convert to OVRD button. And I think that's the easiest way because you don't have to log into anything. You just launch an app and convert it. And then, of course, you need to, once you've got it all installed and converted to OVRD, once you log in, it's going to ask you to, I just totally lost my mind here. I got confused on where I was. All right, so this is how you can convert to OVRD, more details with actual pictures so you can see what you click on. So you can do log into OVRD, local mode, and then go up to information, file information, convert to OVRD. Or like I said, here's the SOSA OVRD tool, and you would click the OVRD tab and then the Convert to OVRD button. And it'll always tell you this question that, you know, once the convert process is started, you can't use the machine for one stop anymore. So just say yes to that unless you click that by accident and then say no. Okay, now we can talk about setting up the machine. So once you've converted the machine to OVRD, you log in, and this is what your login screen will look like. It'll say OVRD here now instead of SOSA. And then your only option for your location is going to be local, unless you have set up the site server functionality, and then you would see that in your drop-down. All right, and then once you get logged in, you'll first be given this screen, which will tell you what things you need to take care of before you can start using it for voting. So we know we need to select an election site. We need to set a machine ID if we're going to use provisional voting. And you can see here it says provisional voting allowed, yes. So we automatically know we've got to set this machine ID. And then we have to set our alphabet range. And so you would click OK, and then you're presented with the options screen. And then you would pick your election site from the drop down. Here's where you set your machine ID. So I've set this one to C01, so I need to make sure that I don't set any other machines to C01, or you're going to have some problems come data transfer time. Over here is where you set your alphabet range. This machine we did A to Z, but you can certainly break this up based on your county needs. You know, you could do A to L, and then maybe another machine would be M to Z. So just set those however you need to, and then click OK. And then once you do that, your OVRD machine is ready to go. There's no validating of OVRD machines, so you don't have to do anything else at this point except start voting people. All right, so this is the main screen in OVRD, and if you look at this, you'll see it looks exactly like SOSA. The voting process is the same. You're going to search for the voter, select their record, and then you're going to click the vote button up here. If there's any kind of information over in this area other than a green check, you're either not going to be able to vote them or you're going to have to do something with them first. Now you might see this guy, he's got a green check, so he's good to go, but if he were an ID required voter, because he registered by mail, you'd see like a little driver's license icon here. If you see cannot vote, not in precinct, you know, that means they're in the wrong precinct and they might need to go somewhere else. So keep an eye on the messages that appear down over here because they can help you determine what you're going to need to do. With an inactive voter, obviously, the only thing you could do would be update them, and that's just like SOSA. No data is transferred back to the county until a manual transfer is done after the polls close. So in SOSA, you may be having your data transfer back and forth all day. In OVRD, it doesn't do that. So you're always going to have to do that end of day transfer to get all the votes off of the machine. And so now what I'm going to do is show you several videos. This first one is going to show you how to vote someone, how to update their address, and how to transfer them. Let me go ahead and get this started. And so I'm checking more criteria so that I can see street name fields in case I need to search on those. And you can see I have search options of searching in this database, or I can search my pending queue if it was allowed during the wizard. That can be helpful if you can't find someone that says maybe they registered at the DMV or something. You could check the pending queue to see if they were in there. But this gentleman here has got a green check mark. He can vote. I'm going to vote him in person. And now you'll see that once I vote him, it says cannot vote, has previously voted. So this voter, if he goes if he wants to come back and vote again, he cannot because he's already shown as voted. If this was a mistake, we could cancel it. But again, he'd have to vote provisionally if he came back. So this is an inactive voter, and you'll notice the vote button is disabled. So the only thing I can do is update their voter registration. If there's something going on with their address, maybe they've moved and didn't tell anyone. So this allows you to go ahead and update their address, which we're doing here. We're just putting in all of the new address information. All right, if everything's correct, we'll hit review. These other buttons are just some other functionality. If you needed to vote them provisional, you could click that. If you need a referral form to send them to the help desk, if you want to see if they had absentee history, you could look at all that. So we went to review. If everything is okay, you could continue. If you made an error somewhere, you can go back and fix that. And we changed the house number on that address, so now we'll just continue voting this person. All right, and there's all their vote information at the bottom, and on the left it shows their new updated address. And when the votes get transferred back to your database in the county, that record will show up in voter scan so that you can, process the address change. So what we're doing here is we're updating another voter's address, but it's going to be in a different precinct than where we are now. So I wanted to see what happens when, an address update becomes a transfer. So see, it says they're not eligible to vote at this site. We can only do a transfer. If you made a mistake, you can say no to cancel out. If you want to continue, you click yes. And then you'll notice the vote button now says transfer instead of vote. So when we click that, it'll say, okay, cannot vote, transferred to BM08 precinct. And then it prints out a form that you can give to the voter that they can take to that new precinct. And it'll have, the address of the precinct and exactly where they need to go. And so that was just the basics of just a straight vote, updating an inactive voter, updating their address, and what happens if someone updates their address and it puts them in a different precinct than where they are now. And that's called a transfer. All right, and so this next demo I'm going to show you is what happens if you do an address change that takes them out of precinct. So we're going to search for our voter here. And you can see down at the bottom it says cannot vote, not in precinct. So they've said, well, I've got a new address, so let me update my address. So now we're going to go ahead and put in the information for the new address. And then we're going to say review, and it says, oh, wait. So this change won't allow voting at the election site. at this election site. So they weren't eligible to vote here with their old address, and they're not eligible to vote here with their new address. So you can send them to that other location where they can then go ahead and vote. All right. And so now this one is going to be an address change that's not eligible for the election. So again, we're going to go in and we're going to search for our voter. All right, and he's got a green check mark. He's okay to vote, but he says, oh, I've moved. I need to give you my new address. So now we're going to put in the new address information. And I like to use that view street ranges and double click the range, because then I'm sure that I've got all the right city, state, and zip info. So review, it says, oh, sorry, that address isn't valid for this election and they're not eligible to receive a ballot. So they're not eligible to vote in this election. If they insist on voting, then this would be a place where you could hit that vote provisional button and take them into the provisional voting process so they could at least do that. All right, and so now I'm going to show you how to do a new or an existing provisional in OVRD, and this is the same as in SOSA, so you may already recognize this. Again, our first step is to search for the voter, and we're going to search for Tomater, and certainly he's not registered because he's a Disney character, so we're going to add him as a new provisional. All of the red fields here are required and must be populated with data to be able to go on to the next step. If you don't have a red field populated, when you hit next at the bottom, it'll tell you that. So we're just going to go ahead and fill in all the required fields. Certainly, if they provide any of the other information on the screen, you can fill all of that in as well. But at a minimum, all of the red fields must be filled in. Now we're going to select our party. And that's all the information they've given us. So then the next thing to do is hit next. Certainly, if they move later, you could change that radio button about the move date and enter a move date. So this is saying that potentially they need to show ID. They don't have to. If they don't provide it, you're welcome to hit the no ID button. It's not a problem. So we're going to say no record of registration. Based on his address, it picked the ballot style for me, but certainly I can override that if I need to. So I click review and it'll print the provisional application. And then this screen is just a summary of everything we filled in. And if everything's good, we hit vote. And now it shows a little icon down at the bottom with the person and the check mark, which indicates that that was a provisional vote. And so now I'm going to show you what it looks like to do an existing voter provisional. So we're searching for a voter and we have found Crystal. So we select her and say existing voter provisional. And then it's going to pull in all her information from her current registration. If anything has changed, you can update that here as necessary. So she has a new address, so we'll hit next. Again, this is not required. You can just hit no ID. And we're going to set our provisional reason, which was an unreported move. Again, the ballot style was set. We hit review, the form prints. They sign it. If everything's good, you hit vote, and then they get the provisional instruction sheet that they have the call-in number and their PIN code, and so they can call and find out whether or not their vote was counted. And so this person has a little provisional icon down there. So this little guy here indicates that that was a provisional vote. And therefore, if we were to go to the tools menu and go to the reports and run the provisional poll book, Tomater and Crystal Burton would be on that report. All right, and this is some functionality that I don't know a lot of people use, but it's here. There's the flag as absentee function or flag as transferred, and you can see those here. And what this is for is, say maybe someone from another site called your site and says, hey, we just had so-and-so vote over here. You may want to go ahead and put them in as a flag as transferred, that they transferred to my site, not yours. And so you may want to flag them in case they were to show up at your site. You wouldn't want to be able to vote them, so it would tell you that they were transferred to that other precinct and it would not allow you to vote them. The flag as absentee allows you to either manually enter or scan in any absentee records that may have come in and been accepted at some point after you loaded your OVRD machine. And you just want to go in and put those people as having returned an absentee ballot so that they can't vote in OVRD on election day. And so this video is just going to kind of show you how those work. So what I'm going to do is search for a voter here, Bernice Wilson, and she voted absentee, but it didn't show in here because it was a late one that came in. So now we can just flag them as absentee and they will not be able to vote. If you did that in error, you can search for them again. The flag as absentee changes to unflag, and then you can remove that flag. So it's not the end of the world if you flag someone as absentee. You can undo that. You can also undo the flag as transfer. So when you do flag as transfer, it says, okay, well, what precinct did the registrant vote in? And you just select that precinct from the list and hit select. And then you'll see down there, if they were to come in and try to vote at your site, it'll say, can't vote, you were transferred to HR 17. Same thing here. If you did that in error, just search for them again and do unflag as transfer, and it'll put them back to normal. All right, and then the OVRD Tools tab is where you're going to find your reports, your transfer function, and then as I mentioned just a bit ago with the flag as absentee, you can scan absentee voters too. So if you had a bunch of them and you print out, there's a report in Report Manager, you can use it. We'll give you all the barcodes, then you can just scan each barcode in and it'll automatically take care of it. That way you don't have to search for the voter and click buttons, you just scan them. And then the post-election audit, which is done at the end of the day. Usually you don't have to do this in OVRD because you're only doing the transfer once. So you'll be getting everybody off in one shot. Let's see, yeah. And so if you're using OVRD connectivity with the site server functionality, there could be votes left behind if users logged in as local instead of using the site server connection. So those of you that do use OVRD connected with that site server functionality, make sure when your poll workers go to lunch, if they log off, that when they log back on, they go into site server and not local. It's going to default to local, so they'll have to click that drop down and hit site server. If they log in as local, it's not the end of the world. They can still vote people, but then you'll have to do an extra transfer at the end because it won't have sent all that information to the server machine. All right, and then to do the transfer to BOE, you would go to that Tools tab and hit the Transfer button, and it will display this screen over here on the right. You can do the To BOE New. That's where you want your radio button to be. Again, you can only do this one time. If you do it during the middle of the day, then it's going to lock that machine out from future votes. And you can see in the description here, it tells you that. So if you allow your poll workers to do the transfers, make sure they're aware of that.
Hey,
if you had a
problem,
Erica? Yes.
I'm sorry, since you've just reiterated that, can you back up one slide for a sec?
Yep.
And then on that is why we separated that transfer out under the Tools tab. So we tried to keep it as distant from the poll worker as possible so they wouldn't hit transfer by mistake. So
correct.
Just under the Tools, just a reminder.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, so if you did a 2BOE and for some reason there was a media failure, it didn't show up on the stick, once you've done the 2BOE, the 2BOE retransfer would be enabled, and then you would hit the drop down, select the transfer that you did, and do it again. So if there's something that happens, don't panic, you can get the file back again. Another thing to be careful of in OVRD is be aware of this file name here. You may need to add a unique identifier. In this example, we added a 2 after ENC. If you've got 3 machines at a site that all have the A to Z alphabet range. Whoops, didn't mean to click. So as you can see here, this particular site and machine was A to Z. So at site NR02, if all 3 of my machines are A to Z, then this file name is going to be the same for each machine. And if you were to save this like it is to your stick, and then come in and do the next machine, you might get a message that says that file already exists, are you sure you want to overwrite it? And the answer to that question should 99.9% of the time be no. Because now it's going to overwrite the one that's there. So if you're using A to Z on multiple machines at your site, just make sure that you come down here and stick some kind of unique character in here so that the file name is different and it won't try to overwrite it. Yeah, and the best, Gary was just saying, you put it right behind the ENC. I think that's the best place to put it. You could put it anywhere you want to, but I think it's easier to just tack a number onto that field. All right, and then once you've created these files on your USB drive, you take that USB drive back to your office, you plug it into your computer, you launch One Stop System Manager, and then there's a big From Satellite button on the left-hand side that you'll click, point it to your USB drive, and it'll import the file. Once the file is imported, you'd be able to go into voter history review and see everything there. And just as a brief side note, the voter history review screen can also be helpful with reconciling One Stop. All right, so now Amanda is going to give you an example here of an important thing we need to know about petitions with the upcoming election. So she'll show you a video and tell you a few other things.
Okay, so unfortunately, we're going to have more petitions, more new parties. So as you're processing it, one of the questions that we get most often is, I've put in somebody, but their address has changed, and when I go to print the reports, I don't get that address change letter. So this is just simply to clarify how you would get that. Eric, I don't think I can start it. If you can start it.
I gave you mouse control. You should be able to.
Okay, let's see. It is not.
Do you have something flashing on your webinar? I'll just start it.
Yeah, if you would.
All right.
Okay, so you get someone to come in and you type in their name, and it's going to bring up that person, and you say, yep, that's who I've got, but he's got a different address. So you add them, and it says he's an active voter and okay. Once you've added him, click that open signer and type in the address that he's given on the petition because it's different from his address that's in voter view. So you would type in that new address and put it in there, and then save that address. So you have him in, you've changed the address, but not in voter view. You're going to send him this change of address letter. So when you have everybody in there and you have typed in his new address, then you're going to go, after you finish the batch you're working on, you're going to go to the report and you're going to go print the information change letter. So you would find the petition that you were working in, and then you would go and print that report. You can select it by batch number and precinct, but I just left those page number. I just left that blank and said I want to see all my changes. And then you'll run that report, and it's going to populate letters that you would send to the voter that they can fill out and say, oh yeah, I've had a new address, or if not, then they would say that they would say that they're still at the old address. This is good information to update your files, and it's fairly critical if you were to have a petition that only a municipality could vote in, and the voter wasn't registered in the municipality. You would want to make sure that it would say no on when you tried to log them in if you had your petition set up correctly. But this is good to keep your update on that. So just remember that when you sign it, if they have a different address, you save them. Once it populates down below, then you click Open Signer, type in the new address, and then go and print these change reports. So that should be okay on that. We just had several questions on that, and I wanted to make sure everybody was clear on that. Next, Erica. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Well, I think she took it back. Okay, again, it just kills me when somebody calls and says, well, I've had 2 or 3 tickets put in and nobody's called me back. So be sure to put in help request this address. That will enter a ticket for you. If you put in help desk, it doesn't, I don't know where it goes, into the black hole. But this is the address that will enter a ticket. So please, I don't want you to think we're ignoring you, and I just need you to really use this address when you're doing it. Please, please. This slide, hang it up so that anybody, if they forget the address, and certainly our number is down here, the toll-free number, but this will enter a ticket for you, and then you'll know that it's coming to us. Next, please. Okay, again, here are your links to the videos and the PowerPoint, the training, everything that's on here under training. You'll get your webinars on FileZilla. You can get the actual PowerPoint on steps. You've got your link to the help files that are in Scenes, and the latest user guides are also out on FileZilla. And here's the path to get to the user guides. Again, they're very, very helpful, and I wouldn't recommend printing them out, but possibly saving it so you can reference it on your desktop if you need a specific page, and also share it with your IT people if you're depending on them to load your machines. Also, Emily has said that they will be sending out a memo, numbered memo with frequently asked questions to legal, and that should be forthcoming to hopefully help you navigate all that you're going through. So she said to be looking for that. They'll be sending that out soon. Erica, next, please.
Was that the only thing Emily had?
Yeah, that was, she just said that would be it would be forthcoming with that. She didn't have it ready for right now, so they'll be sending it. And also, another reminder from accounting, you know, as you're printing your late letters, you're going to have to pull those underage manually and your felons. So don't forget to pull those letters. I'm sorry that we don't have it incorporated to weed them out, but it is not. So you're going to have to remember to do that as you're processing your felons. You don't want to send them a late letter for sure.
Okay. And I wanted to just let you know about a defect that was found early this week in SOSA and OVRD in the provisional module. The provisional mailing address is going to unfortunately print out twice on the provisional application. So if you don't enter a provisional mailing address, it's no problem. But if somebody gives you a post office box or whatever, and you fill that in, it's going to print in that block twice. It only seems to be printing the first line twice. It doesn't print the city, state, zip twice. But that is a known defect, and hopefully it'll be resolved soon, but obviously it couldn't get fixed before tomorrow. So I just thought I'd give everybody a heads up on that. That's all the housekeeping.
Erica, one other thing that don't forget to validate your machines. You know, if you have sent them out to a site and they're not validated, that is going to be a problem. So hopefully everybody has double checked. You can go into One Stop System Manager and look at your machine info, and you should see all the machines that are going to be used. They should be validated, and you should be able to see them all there. So please double check that. It's such a hassle if you've sent them out and forgot to validate them. It just creates a little chaos on the first voter that comes in. And also, Erica, and I'll ask you that the machine ID, I think it can be any 3 characters, can it? I mean, it could be 3 letters or a number in the letters.
It can't start with a number. It has to start with a letter. But I think you could do 2 letters and a number.
Okay.
But I'm not positive because the advice has always been a letter and 2 numbers.
Right. We'll double check that. I think it can be 3 letters too, but we'll double check it. But it'd be great just to do a letter and the 2 numbers. But as long as they're unique, it's got to be unique. So validate, pull your felons, legal info coming in a memo soon, and good luck to everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's all I have for today. So, you know, if anybody, you know, needs help up to the last minute this evening, I'll be on call. So you can just put in a help desk ticket and we'll get back to you. Hopefully everybody will be ready to go by the end of business today. But if you're not, we're here if you need us. And that's all we have today. So thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Gary. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Okie doke. See y'all.